Why are you slowing
Mr.
down?
Speaker, this is a weak answer because he doesn't know what is going on. Last week, I asked about the employment bill. He didn't know what was going on. We asked about the education bill. He didn't know what was going on. Let me tell him what is going on. Maybe he can answer some questions. Shell has said a one-year delay to Rosebank will cost £350 million and the loss of 1,000 jobs.
Yep.
Equinor has said a two-year delay to Jackdaw will cost £800 million.
Yep.
The only benefit I can see is the £400,000 to Labour ministers.
Yeah.
At a time of war in Europe, threatened energy security, increased competition from the US and elsewhere, we should be getting British oil and gas out of the ground. Does the Prime Minister have the guts to take on Labour donors and his Energy Secretary and approve the licence applications when they are resubmitted?
Prime Minister.
Speaker, she doesn't even want to know what's going on, otherwise she'd have asked for the relevant briefing. She knows the position on Rosebank. She knows the court case that has meant that the licence has got to be reviewed. There's a process that's got to be gone through in the proper way. She understands that, but yet again she's proving all she can do is student politics and playing party politics.
Mr. Speaker, I am speaking on behalf of the people of this country. When Labour negotiates, our country loses. When Labour negotiates, our country loses. He's talking about bringing growth and investment. Last week, he lost a £450 million investment from AstraZeneca that we negotiated, Mr. Speaker, and which would have delivered growth immediately. That same day, he also lost the £8 billion oil field investment that would have delivered next year. Business is abandoning the North Sea because of his decisions. What signal does he think he is sending to investors?
As she knows, AstraZeneca was a commercial decision. She must understand that. But Mr. Speaker, all she does is come here every week, carping from the sidelines, talking our country down. We've got the highest investment for 19 years. PwC say the second best place to invest in the world. The IMF has upgraded growth. Wages are up. Inflation is down. There's more to do. Reforming planning and regulation, building new homes, supporting a runway, the third runway at Heathrow. What unites these? Championed by Labour, opposed by the Tories.
During a heated debate in the House of Commons, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer launched a scathing attack on Business and Trade Secretary Kemi Badenoch, accusing her of consistently undermining the government without offering any constructive solutions. His remarks came in response to Badenoch's sharp criticisms of the government's handling of the Chagos Islands Agreement, a sensitive issue involving Britain's ongoing negotiations with Mauritius over the sovereignty of the islands. Starmer dismissed Badenoch's interventions as nothing more than political point scoring, suggesting that her primary aim was to build her personal profile rather than contribute meaningfully to the debate. By describing Badenoch's behavior as sniping from the sidelines and talking our country down, Starmer underscored what he sees as a growing trend within the Conservative Party, one in which ambitious politicians focus more on internal party dynamics and leadership positioning rather than addressing the pressing issues facing the country. His criticism also served as a broader indictment of a faction within the Tory ranks that appears increasingly divided, especially as Prime Minister Rishi Sunak struggles to unite his party and navigate complex international negotiation. The Chagos Islands dispute is a particularly sensitive subject in British politics. The islands, which have been under British control since the 1960s, are at the center of a long-standing legal and diplomatic battle between the UK and Mauritius. International courts, including the International Court of Justice, have ruled that the UK's claim over the islands is unlawful, adding to the pressure on the British government to resolve the matter diplomatically. However, the issue remains politically contentious, with many Conservatives opposing any move that would cede sovereignty, fearing it could set a precedent for other territorial disputes. Badenoch, who is seen as a rising star within the Conservative Party and a potential future leader, has been vocal on a range of policy issues, often taking a combative approach in the Commons. Her decision to use the Chagos Islands Agreement as a means of attacking the government may reflect not only her personal political ambitions, but also the growing factionalism within the party. With the Conservatives trailing in the polls and a general election looming, figures like Badenoch are increasingly positioning themselves for a potential post-Sunak leadership contest. Starmer, for his part, has sought to portray himself as a leader focused on delivering stability and constructive governance rather than engaging in what he sees as the political theatrics of the Conservative Party. His remarks about Badenoch are consistent with his broader strategy of presenting Labour as a party ready to govern, in contrast to what he describes as the infighting and dysfunction of the Conservatives. Beyond the immediate exchange between Starmer and Badenoch, the incident reflects a deeper tension in British politics, the struggle between short-term political maneuvering and the need for long-term, pragmatic policymaking. As the UK faces economic challenges, international diplomatic pressures, and an increasingly fractured political landscape, the ability of politicians to rise above partisan attacks and engage in serious policy discussions will be critical. Whether figures like Badenoch continue to prioritize party politics over governance, or whether leaders like Starmer can effectively navigate these challenges to present a compelling alternative, remains to be seen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 3 weeks ago, the government announced 5 local inquiries into rape gangs, which crucially cannot compel witnesses to give evidence. We still don't know where all of them will be, and we don't know how those towns will be chosen. As Charlie Peters from GB News originally reported, there are 50 suspected towns where grooming gangs are suspected to have operated. Does the Minister recognise that the failure to announce a meaningful national statutory inquiry means women and girls from across the country who won't be from those 5 selected towns will be denied justice, a fair hearing? And if the victims want a national statutory inquiry, why doesn't she?
I have spent time with the victims that he speaks about. In fact, I will be going to see some more of the victims from around the country. I speak to these victims every single week, week in, week out. Unlike, I have to say, many of the people sat opposite me. And what I would like to say on this particular issue is that absolutely nothing was done previously to try and get to the truth in some of these towns. And we will absolutely do whatever we can to root out, as everybody in this House wants to see, while some of us wish to use it for political ends, an end to this particular crisis. We will be opening, we have offered to open up cases and have set the task force to do exactly that with any victim who wishes to come forward.
In a tense parliamentary exchange, Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips responded to Conservative MP Saqib Badi's question regarding the limited scope of government inquiries into grooming gangs. Badi raised concerns that only 5 areas were being investigated, despite reports from GB News suggesting that over 50 towns and cities across the UK have been affected by this crisis. His question highlighted growing frustration over what many perceive as a lack of urgency and transparency in addressing the widespread nature of child exploitation networks. Jess Phillips, a vocal advocate for victims of sexual abuse and exploitation, has long campaigned for tougher action against grooming gangs. Her response to Badi's challenge likely emphasized the need for thorough and meaningful investigations, while also acknowledging the systemic failures that have allowed these crimes to persist. However, her position as safeguarding minister puts her in a difficult spot, as she must balance the need for more expansive inquiries with the government's current approach, which has so far been selective in its investigations. Phillips' response to Badi's challenge would have been closely scrutinized, as her party, Labour, has faced criticism in the past for its handling of grooming gang scandals, particularly in areas where local authorities and police forces failed to act decisively. As safeguarding minister, she is expected to push for robust policies that prioritize victims over political concerns. However, the government's approach suggests that it may be attempting to contain the political fallout rather than launching the sweeping nationwide investigations many are demanding. Ultimately, Batty's question underscores the need for greater transparency and a more comprehensive response to grooming gang crimes. If GB News and other reports are correct in identifying over 50 affected towns and cities, then limiting inquiries to just 5 areas appears inadequate. Phillips and the government must address this growing concern by either expanding investigations or explaining why such a narrow focus has been chosen. Failing to do so risks further eroding public trust and allowing perpetrators to continue their abuse unchecked. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Join our Telegram community for exclusive updates. Link below.